Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cheatash. My name is Chris, and we are on the last episode for the Four Agreements. This episode, we're just going to do an overview of kind of everything we talked about over the course of this book review, mainly focusing on those four agreements. This was a really good book. I ended up reading this again over in May, back when we were in Arizona. It was a quick read, so only about like 150 pages. And it ended up being different than what I thought it was. And I ended up kind of learning a lot from it. It's very simple. I don't think there's anything too complicated in the ideas that Don Miguel Ruiz explains throughout this book, because these are ideas that I've kind of read about in a lot of other books and from what other people have also shared with me and taught me. Overall, I really like this book. I have found that over the course of these last couple months since May, that I find myself thinking in regards to the four agreements. I go about my days with the four agreements in mind, always. Or, excuse me, not always, but it's in the back of my mind. Do your best. Don't make assumptions. Don't take things personally. Be impeccable with your word. These are things that it's on my radar now. And I think overall that's a very positive thing. Overall, I think this book was a very positive book. And it definitely changed the way that I look at things, changed the way that I think. Let's start things off. We'll go to the first slide and talk about the introduction to the book, where the author introduces the idea that there is this dream of humanity. And the dream is kind of passed down from generation to generation. And you're taught it at a very young age, mostly by parents or elders. And the dream comes with its own set of rules that you have to follow, or agreements. This is where the author first introduces the word agreement, was in this chapter. And we then are kind of domesticated to follow these agreements. And it's through repetition that your attention becomes focused on the dream of humanity and following it, and not necessarily following your dream. Actually, in a way, the dream of humanity becomes your dream, and now you're almost destined to pass it off to the next generation after you. And you agree with the information that is passed to you. That's why it's called an agreement. There's this collective, I don't want to, a collective agreement. What's another word for agreement? Collective, like, just idea that we're all supposed to follow this one thing. And then at some point you go against the agreements, but then you are punished externally, probably when you're at a young age from your parents, but you're punished externally then when you don't follow those agreements, you don't follow the rules. Over time, your parents have to do that less and less. You get older, you become your own man or woman, you go out on your own, and then they don't have to punish you anymore. All of a sudden, you punish yourself. And in a way, I spelled domesticators wrong, but you become your own domesticators. I remember I read this somewhere, that the worst type of censorship is self-censorship. Couldn't agree with that more. You censor yourself. You don't need anybody to tell you to. You're already like programmed to do that. So these agreements, a lot of these agreements are fear-based agreements. They have to do with staying safe for fear of rejection or fear of something bad happening to you or a conflict. And what you have to do, the author says, is you have to break the old agreements. So how do you do that? This is where the four agreements come in. And the first one, be impeccable with your word. This one, I've mentioned it, I think I remember mentioning it in this episode, was words carry weight, and you have to really choose your words wisely, right? Your word selection is all up to you and how you use it. And it's really a double-edged sword. It can be used very positively or used very negatively, right? You can choose to tell, like, let's say you have a child, right? And the child does something draws something really cool, and he runs into the room that you're in, and let's say you're on your phone, and he's like, Dad, look what I just draw. Look at this. This is so cool. And you say, oh yeah, oh nice, good job, son. Wow. But you don't even pick up your head, and you're still down on your phone, and that's kind of it. Now flip it. Now your son comes in the room, super excited. Dad, look what I draw. Look what I drew. And this time, oh wow, that's so cool. Do you see like the difference in that response? On the one, yeah, you say, hey, good job, but your head is still in your phone. You don't say it with a lot of enthusiasm. In the second example, you have way more enthusiasm. You pick your head up from your phone. You go over and you actually take a look at the drawing. And maybe, I mean, you're really using the same words there, but it's more of like the tonality and the enthusiasm that changes, which I think still makes a huge difference. And I remember Jordan Belfort, this might be a book that we might have to review, is the straight line system that Jordan Belfort he wrote about in his book, The Way of the Wolf, which I have here and I have read. But tonality is like everything as far as communication. But so is word selection too. And he's actually talked about that as well. So maybe that wasn't the greatest example, but it's just something that quickly came to mind right now. The words carry weight. The word is like a seed, and is that seed going to be used to grow or be used for fear? And this word impeccability means that it means without sin, and you don't use the word against yourself. So you don't unfairly criticize other people. You're using that word against yourself, and this is interesting what the author talked about here. When you do that, the reaction from that other person is now you're directly responsible for that because you use the word in a negative light, and then that word comes back against you because that person is now going to have a negative reaction to what you said about them. You're really using it against you. So really be impeccable with your word. Do not use it against yourself. And realize that our words carry a lot of meaning and there's a double-edged sword to them. Next agreement is you don't take anything personally. And this all stems from an everything is about me mentality, which is a very selfish thing. Not everything is about you. And you take things personally because you think the world kind of revolves around you, that other people keep you in mind whenever they say certain things. And the reason you start to take things personally and get upset is because you become defensive that you actually start to believe what other people say about you. And this creates an internal conflict. But you should already know yourself that you don't have to really listen to what other people say about you. Now, here's what the caveat to this is. Yes, I think constructive criticism is a good thing. I don't think we should ignore that when it's done right, you know. I think most people can kind of tell the difference between talking shit and constructive criticism. I mean, I think we can be fair about that. But you don't need the validation from anybody. Somebody calls you stupid, I'm not going to take it personally because, well, I know I'm not stupid. You don't need to create that internal conflict with yourself. You know who you are. And, you know, the reason people say that is because of most of the time it's because of their current state. And I love what the author said here in this chapter about people's communication tends to follow their emotions at that current state. So even if somebody says, hey, you're doing a great job, maybe they're just super, super happy. You can't take that personally either. And I like that the author looked at the flip side of this from both the positive and negative light. If things do sting, though, what the author says is you still have some open wounds about something. I definitely can attest to this. I'm trying to think of an example here. Like if somebody says I can't do something, I feel like I used to get so upset at that, and I would try to put so much energy forth to prove them wrong about it. And I think it all kind of stems from being told I couldn't play football at that next level, at the college level. And I think that's a part of the reason why I would get so worked up about that. That's just kind of one example, and I'm sure there's people have similar and other many examples that follow that. At the end of the day, I think people are addicted to suffering. So they like taking things personally because they want to suffer in a way. And I totally see this, especially in today's world. They need an obstacle to kind of get over. People need that. But instead of getting over it, it becomes just a constant in their life. And it kind of fills a void. So instead of overcoming the obstacle, it's there to fill space because they don't want that space to be empty, or else they'll have to deal with their own emotions, their own internal state. These are kind of just my ideas. This isn't necessarily what the author talks about here, but something to think about. The next agreement, the third agreement, is you don't make assumptions. And the reason you make assumptions is that you play it safe, and it's not about being correct. It's about just being right in your mind and just not dealing with the facts. So you just assume, you stay safe in your little bubble. You don't You don't have to venture out and actually find the correct answer. It replaces the need to communicate. And the simplest way to just not make assumptions is just communicate and ask for clarification. You make assumptions, like I used to do this. You make assumptions with other people. We talked about this on this episode about making assumptions with certain people and then being so in conflict when they fail to meet the expectations, but you never explicitly communicated anything between each other. Simplest way to do that is, hey, don't make assumptions. Communicate, clarify. So much of life is just managing expectations. What's to be expected out of this encounter? I told this to somebody really recently. I remember I asked out this girl actually, and she said, well, what are we going to be doing? And I told her exactly what my objective was in this meeting. Probably not very romantic at all, but I just said, hey, I'd like to meet up for coffee. I want to know your family history. I want to know where you come from. I want to know if our values align. Super upfront about it. And probably some people would say, no, that is not the correct approach at all. But I don't know. It's just managing expectations. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. I'm just letting you know this is what to be expected. And you let me know if that jives with what you're looking for. And go from there. The fourth agreement, always do your best. And the reason the first three work is from the fourth. If you always do your best, then you have nothing to hang your head on. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. This was kind of really noteworthy for me in this chapter. Your best changes from moment to moment. Your best one day might be 50 points, 10 rebounds, and you're getting MVP like Giannis Antetokounmpo. The next night, your best might be 15 points, 5 rebounds, couple assists, but you still win the game. It's going to be different depending on how you feel, how much sleep you get, how sore you are from the next day, how the meetings went in your day, how your kids come home and feel. It's going to change. The most important thing to do is not over try or under try. You under try, you're going to get frustrated. You over try, all of a sudden your best is not enough. You end up chasing something that's not attainable. You end up getting frustrated anyway. If you're doing your best, you have no need to punish yourself because you did your best. That's it. It's simple. And that's, to kind of sum things up, that's really kind of what I liked about this book was the simplicity of it. You know, we don't need to go off on so many different tangents and go super, super detailed. We went the depth, the exact depth that we needed to in this book. That's why I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was short, 150 pages. I'd highly recommend it. It's a quick read. You could get it done in a weekend if you really wanted to, less than a weekend. Or for those of you who like audiobooks, super easily get it done in a weekend. And I know Don Miguel Ruiz has other books on Toltec wisdom too that I might check out in the future. But I really did enjoy this book. I hope you guys did too. Thank you very much for listening this far. Thank you guys so much. We've gained quite a bit over this last week, and we're just going to keep going, keep moving forward. The next book I think I'm going to read is a parenting book that my friend Ted wrote, self-published, wrote it back in 2011. And I'm not a parent, but I think it'd be really cool to read a book like this, relatively short book, and hopefully at the end of it, I can talk to Ted and interview Ted and give you the information straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And I think it's really cool that he wrote the book. There's going to be some people out there who probably don't see a need for it, probably won't watch the videos because they're not parents themselves, but I think some people will get value from it. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm going to try to start that next week for you guys. And thank you very much for listening, as always. My name is Chris. This has been Cheetash. Take care.